Ladies and gentlemen, after talking about it here all over social media, we have finally unveiled our guest to kick off this week's Sports Report show, the #1 global sports show on Sportanarium. And we needed some hope. We needed some motivation. And we have our guiding light. And he's somebody who's going to be one of the biggest stars, not just for Odyssey Pro Wrestling, not just for UK wrestling, but for all of wrestling. Because I have become a fan of his in-ring work. He is one of the best self-promoters around. He is the host also of his own show, like when it comes to Guiding Light TV. He is one of the best speakers in the business. We are very humbled to have him here on the Sports Report, the #1 global sports show. And without further ado here, the latest star for Odyssey Pro Wrestling, and that's the Guiding Light Isaiah Quinn. Isaiah, how are you, my friend?
I am great after that. Let me just soak introduction in. I can feel the rays just bathing me. Thank you for that, Mr. Brice. What an introduction.
Well, you are a motivational speaker, and we know that you've given hope to so many across the UK pro wrestling scene. And obviously, we wanted some of that hope to rub off us up here in the States. So we were definitely very pumped to have you on, my friend. And congratulations on being the latest signee for Odyssey Pro Wrestling. And obviously, we've done a lot of work with Odyssey Pro Wrestling here over the past several weeks. And we're very excited about the promotion, all the great things that it's going to offer here later this year. And we know that you are going to play a big role in that. And for our worldwide audience here on Sportanarium listening, talk about signing with Odyssey Pro Wrestling and what this means to you.
Well, first of all, the congratulations really should go to OPW. They should be congratulated for such a lucrative signing, such as Isaiah Quinn. Although, yes, I guess it is a very important coup, if you could say, for me. So, yeah, I am very excited to be part of Odyssey Pro Wrestling. They seem to know what they're doing, and I think that just makes it even more sweeter when I decide to kind of tear their house down, if you get my drift.
Oh, we know that you are going to definitely tear the house down in Odyssey Pro Wrestling. And does that make you excited also, knowing that you're going to be in a promotion that you're going to want to be in? You know, sometimes wrestlers go to places or they're in different matches or programs where it's almost like it's par to the course. And, you know, they're doing it because for obvious reasons. But I don't get that here with Odyssey. I don't get that here with you because I've seen a lot of the wrestlers that are going to be in Odyssey. I've obviously, on behalf of Sportanarium and the Sports Report, I've gotten to speak with many of your colleagues, and some of them I'm sure you'll be in the ring with at some point. Does that motivate you also even more, knowing that you're in an environment that you want to be in?
Yeah, I think being with such top quality talent in a place such as Morecambe, where OPW are based, which is renowned for having crazy fans. I think that's one of the reasons why I was really pleased to be part of this. Yeah, the talent involved and all of the people who seem to be running OPW have a very, very positive mindset, and I think that rubs off on me.
How important is that now in having the right people guide the promotion? No pun intended. Because obviously there are many, many wrestling promotions out there, and especially in the UK. But it's different in Morecambe. It's different in Morecambe because you've alluded to it. And again, we've talked with a number of your colleagues that are going to be in Odyssey Pro Wrestling. And the scene in Morecambe, and I've said this in a couple of different interviews, I've said that the scene in Morecambe, from what I've watched, is very similar to what I've experienced here in the tri-state area in the States, here in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut. I get that vibe here with Morecambe, where the fans are into it and they're going to let you know what you're doing in the ring. They're going to let you know what they feel about it. So how important is that then the people behind Odyssey Pro Wrestling understand their fan base and understand Morecambe and the history that it has?
Yeah, it's hugely important. I think Morecambe in wrestling circles is kind of renowned for how passionate and crazy the fans are in a positive way. And I think having a new promotion go into there, they need to know what they're doing. They can't just go in blind. And I think the people involved are, obviously done the homework. They are aware of Morecambe. They'll have, wrestled there themselves to different promotions. And I think it's extremely important that the people running the show, are taking that into account, because obviously the fans come first. That's who you wrestle for. You wrestle for fans.
Absolutely. No question about it. And these are some of the reasons why we're very excited about Odyssey Pro Wrestling. And we are ready to set sail here in the coming months. And we're talking with the latest signee of Odyssey Pro Wrestling. That is the Guiding Light, Isaiah Quinn. And of course, Isaiah Quinn has done a lot in the business here in a short amount of time. And he has had stints in places like Grand Pro Wrestling, Future Shock Pro Wrestling, In-N-Out Wrestling, KO Wrestling. So there is a lot of places he has wrestled at, but we're most excited about him wrestling here in Odyssey Pro Wrestling later this year, as I am the host of the Sports Report, the #1 global sports show, the Reverend Tom Brice, and we are talking with Isaiah Quinn about all things related to his career in Odyssey Pro Wrestling. And Isaiah, what are your goals here in Odyssey Pro Wrestling?
Oh, that's a great question. Now, I've listened to some of the interviews that you have had with some of the OPW talent at Odyssey. I couldn't help but think what my goal would be. They've all talked about their goals. And I think easiest way to sum it up, I take a lot of pride in burning people's dreams down. So if I just have the slight opportunity to destroy someone's dream of being an Odyssey Pro Wrestling champion, and if I pick up some gold along the way, so be it. But there's nothing better watching the faces or the smiles of a crowd just slowly drop whilst bashing someone's head in and realizing that their dreams are kaput. Yeah, there's something very, very warming for me about that.
Why do you have me thinking of the Sweet Dreams Are Made Of song? For whatever reason, that chorus automatically just pops up into my head when you say that. But I got to ask you then, after hearing you say some of those things, and again, obviously we've talked with a number of different wrestlers who are going to be in OPW. I mean, not to reveal anything, and don't tell us your plans, or don't tip your hand, as they would say. Are there any wrestlers in Odyssey Pro Wrestling you might be targeting most, or maybe might need to see the light?
Oh, why not all of them? Why does it have to be any specific? Let's put it this way, though. I'm not going to go for someone at the bottom of the chain, okay? When someone's at the top of the chain, that's who I'm fixated on, because that's where dreams have come to fruition for that person. And like I said, I like to destroy dreams. So the bigger the dream, the better. And that could be anyone. I don't care who it is. Bring them on.
We cannot wait for that. It has been a very long time since we've gotten to see wrestling here in the UK. I know that we've heard, and we won't name sources, but we've heard of different matches or different things going on. We won't say who, we won't say where, but for the most part, it's been a year without wrestling. I mean, here in the States, we're finally starting to see the indies come back, and we've seen that in a number of different states where you're even seeing meet and greets again. It's a very limited basis. It's not what it used to be, obviously, before the pandemic, but we're starting to see that. Obviously here in New Jersey also, next month there's some matches that have been announced in independent shows, and you've even seen a few in Pennsylvania and Connecticut, and certainly in the southern part of the country where it almost seems like the pandemic ended already. They're already going back to normal, and they're already having fans, and they've already had events. In fact, we even spoke with a wrestler at the beginning of the year who was involved in an event on Fight TV that had a sellout crowd, quote unquote. So we've seen that pop up. And how much then are you looking forward to get back into the ring? Because it's been a year. I mean, you think about it, it feels like 10 years, Isaiah, but it's been a year pretty much since you haven't been in the ring. I mean, how excited are you to get back in the ring?
Oh yeah, really excited. It's a difficult thing to describe. Wrestling's such a creative outlet. The physical aspect of it is just one aspect of that. But yeah, when you're not running those ropes and you're not attacking people, it can kind of get inside your own head a little bit. Now, fortunately, being the developed mind that I am, I've not let that sort of get into my head. So when wrestling does come back, I am very confident that it will not be too long before, I pick up them steps again. But yeah, very excited for it to come back. I think, I don't know how long it's going to be till it's back properly, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Oh, another pun.
Well, you are the guiding light. I mean, you are the guiding light. So obviously, you have definitely given us light at the end of the tunnel, and you can definitely see it. And I gotta say, listen, about 4 or 5 months ago, I wasn't sure if we were ever gonna get any light because it seemed like we were in this perpetual motion, this prolonged, just slow motion, no pun intended. But I think now we're starting to feel better. I think we're starting to see results, and I think in the next few months we're gonna see at least that path. I mean, I think the fact even here in WrestleMania, we're going to have fans and tickets are on sale. And we've seen a number of different events. The last AEW pay-per-view Retribution had about almost 1,500 fans. So I think we're starting to see it. I know it hasn't been what we hoped. I don't think anybody thought that would be a year in a pandemic. We were all told 2 weeks, 30 days to flatten the curve. But we are here because, listen, Isaiah Quinn flattened the curve for us. He's the reason why that we're going back into normalcy. I mean, listen, the Guiding Light got the vaccine for us. The Guiding Light got the plan for us to be able to be where we are today. And that's why we know that we're on our way to normalcy. And for you, you've obviously had quite a career in the business. And for a worldwide audience here on Sportanarium, I was curious on what got you into wrestling.
What got me into wrestling? So I guess here in the UK, we didn't have that much access to wrestling back in the kind of 90s. We used to have a couple of channels that would show it. So Channel 5 would show kind of WCW Nitro highlight shows. And then Channel 4 would show like Sunday Night Heat. And then they'd show the pay-per-views actually late at night. And yeah, I remember watching WCW Nitro in particular, Sting and his kind of crow phase, and it just captivated me. And yeah, as well with what was then WWF, I used to go around to my mate's house and we'd watch Raw, we'd play wrestling games on the N64, and I also, I used to do karate when I was younger, and my dad sort of like kitted out the garage with some mats. So we used to just play wrestling on the mats and didn't know what we were doing really, but do suplexes and everything at such a young age kind of got ingrained in me from then really.
Got me thinking about my growing up in the late 90s because Nintendo 64, I remember saving enough money as a kid to buy WCW NWO Revenge, and then I wound up saving enough money.
Yes.
Yep, that was the first game. That was the first video game that you felt like, wow, this is like, it had a whole list of wrestlers. You were able to do all different types of moves. Before it was kind of like those WWF video games on like Super Nintendo where it was like WWF Raw or King of the Ring, and they were limited. I even remember being a baby and I played WrestleMania on Nintendo, but it was like a handful of wrestlers. But Revenge was the first one that was like, wow, it felt like even today, like if I picked it up, it would be modern. Then you had WrestleMania 2K, you had No Mercy, and you had WCW Mayhem on PlayStation. So that was my growing up. I remember saving enough money just to be able to buy the $50 in US money to buy all those different games. And all I would do was I would cut school just to play those games. So when you talk about your memories of growing up into getting into wrestling in the late 1990s, that's exactly mirrors my growing up in my background of it. And speaking of that, in wrestlers that you got to look up to and wrestlers that I'm sure you've emulated in one way or another, you were a part of For the Love of Wrestling convention in 2019. And that had a who's who of wrestlers that were there. And obviously, you've been in the business at that moment for a while, but what did that mean to you for the Love of Wrestling convention in 2019?
Oh, yeah, what an experience that was. I just think it was I tried to really make a point of taking it all in, because I didn't want it to just kind of pass me by. That many kind of legends under one roof, and the fact that I got to wrestle there as well. I mean, I wouldn't have ever thought that would ever happen. So that was a bit of a dream come true, and it was just great. I remember actually we were all getting changed. We all had like a part in the convention center that was cut off. And I remember coming back from the toilet in my gear, and who walks past? Scott Hall. He walks past us and say, "Go and kill it, guys." Like, wow, that's really cool. Like no one would ever believe me. But yeah, it was incredible. And it was just a very nice experience. And, Future Shock are a great promotion as well. And, really, really helped me develop during my time there. So yeah, it was just a wonderful experience.
Listen, that's got to be an experience that you're going to live with for the rest of your life. I mean, Scott Hall is a big guy. I mean, people think, oh, Scott Hall. And no, when you see wrestlers up close, they're a lot bigger than you realize. I mean, we've done a lot of work with professional athletes in the other sports, and we always tell people, oh, listen, no, they're a lot bigger than they are in real life versus on TV. And Scott Hall, if I'm not mistaken, is about 6'8", 6'9", and he's about 250, 260. I mean, in his heyday in WCW, he might have even been about 280. So Scott Hall is a big guy.
He is. I think it is deceiving when you see it on TV. But yeah, walking past him, it was like, I didn't realize he was that tall.
Listen, one of our buddies is Steve Saperstein. He was a basketball player here in the States, and he actually dabbled in some sports stuff when he was after college. And he's 6'4", and he's a big guy, right? He's 6'4", and he's probably about 180, 190. But some of these wrestlers, when you talk about the bad guy Scott Hall or Razor Ramon, quote unquote, he's 6'8", 6'9". I mean, even wrestlers like you talk about Sting. Sting's a big guy. I mean, you look on TV, you think, Sting looks just like me. No, Sting's about 250, 260, and even to this day, he's still a big man. But speaking of fans, and it was something that you had done on your behalf, which I thought was highly fascinating. And again, we've talked with a lot of wrestlers who are in OPW, and even some wrestlers who are just colleagues of yours across the scene here in the UK, but you actually had a fan make your character in 2K18. I mean, that's got to be pretty cool. I mean, what did that mean to you?
Yeah, it's a bizarre feeling when you see it. I think, I've had wrestling games in the past where I've made myself as a wrestler, but the fact that someone else has made me, it's a very unusual experience. I mean, I'm very grateful that people, think of me enough to want to make a character of me in a video game. Yeah, it's amazing. And hopefully, that'll continue. People can do their own creations in future games and see what other versions of Isaiah Quinn pop up.
Well, I think it's safe to say that the Guiding Light, Isaiah Quinn, definitely gave that fan some hope and definitely gave that fan some motivation. And speaking of that, because as we mentioned at the top, you host your own platform called the Guiding Light TV, where you've put together a series of videos, a series of vignettes, and other different wrestlers that even appeared in them. And we've seen a number of different personalities that have appeared in them. And they're quite entertaining. And everybody needs to subscribe to the Guiding Light TV page on YouTube, and also follow, obviously, the Guiding Light Isaiah Quinn across all social media platforms. And we'll definitely plug that here at the end of our interview. But talk about what motivated you to start the Guiding Light TV.
Yeah, it's an unusual one, really. I think during the pandemic, COVID, where I was furloughed from work, we're on lockdown here in the UK, I was slowly getting bored, and I really wanted to kind of keep my creativity up. So I was just kind of thinking of other ways Isaiah Quinn can brainwash people and manipulate people. And I initially came up with an idea of, a TV channel, and think of it like a motivational speaker that kind of tries to sort of sell you the idea of having a better life. And I initially wanted the channel just to involve me, but because I had a lot of spare time on my hands, I thought I would enlist some of my peers in the wrestling industry. So there's a lot of people that we got involved. I think over the course of a few months, we did kind of a series 2 that was so like the series 1 was just them doing their own thing, and the series 2 was kind of a parody of a British TV show called Gogglebox. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but all it is it's a TV program of people watching TV, which is a very weird kind of concept, but but overall, we had about 30 people take part in Guiding Light TV over the 2 kind of series that we did. Yeah, initially I just started it off as just being me, and me just doing lots of promos to people, but I thought, let's take this opportunity to kind of collaborate with other people and get to know other people. And yeah, I mean, if people think that that's a very kind thing to do, think of it from my point of view. When I enlist people to take part in something like this, I get to know them better. And when you know someone better, you step in the ring with them, I'm already inside the head. So it was very self-serving as well as giving something to the community.
Oh, you definitely gave a lot more than just to the community. You gave a lot to a lot of wrestling fans out there. And the only other show I could compare it to almost in a way was the Edge and Kristen show, even though it's 2 totally different things. I mean, what you were doing versus the E&C show, these are 2 totally different things, but that was the only other comparison that I could compare it to. But did that also kind of keep your chops going? Because you said something interesting when we had talked about how excited that you were in getting back into the ring and talking about the pandemic and how it's impacted you in a way. And I know that you did an interview recently where you had talked about that, but I think maybe in a way doing this actually kind of helped your mind focus and have something to look forward to. Because again, we've talked with a lot of different of your colleagues, and again, some of them in OPW, and it was tough for them at times to kind of keep focus and keep ready. And I know that there was a start and stop period at one point in the pandemic with the lockdowns, and I know that that can be tough psychologically, but I think with this, it actually kind of helped you to keep going. You were able to have something to promote. You had something to be able to keep your name out there and keep your name alive. And I think that that's one of the most important things, is you have to keep the name alive. You know, I worked in politics, and they would always say it's always about the name. You always have to keep the name alive. It's about the name recognition. And I think in a way, you were one of the few wrestlers that was able to still consistently do that. I mean, what's your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. I'm generally of the mindset of kind of content is king, especially for who I am and how I can reach people. Isaiah Quinn, the Guiding Light, kind of lends itself to a lot of promotional material and social media. So, you know, I used to put out a lot of content before the pandemic. And when the pandemic kind of came about, I was fearful, and I don't get fearful often, was fearful of losing that edge. So I made a point of being proactive about that. And that's kind of how Guiding Light TV came to be. It helped me figure out different ways to manipulate and brainwash people. Because, you know, Isaiah Quinn that you see in the ring might be different to the Isaiah Quinn you see at home. You know, there is preparation and stuff that goes on before I step into the ring. I have my own rituals. So doing Guiding Light TV, putting that content out, was kind of like me going through the rituals of kind of getting ready to do something and getting into the ring. It's just that unfortunately the payoff of wrestling wasn't there, but you know, I got a payoff through a different way by collaborating with other people.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have gotten yet the biggest payoff, because we have our guest to kick off this week's Sports Report show, the #1 global sports show, and that is the latest signing of Odyssey Pro Wrestling, and that's the Guiding Light Isaiah Quinn. As I am the host of the Sports Report.
Bravo, again.
You want me to do it again? We'll do it again. The Guiding.
You don't have to. You really don't have to.
Well, after a while, you kind of get the hang of this. And when you have on all the different people that we've had on the Sports Report the last 2.5 years, it becomes like second nature, just like you in the ring. I mean, listen, you're one of the best wrestlers out there. I think that your ring psychology is second to none. And that's why we're honored to have you on the Sports Report. And I am the host of the Sports Report, the Reverend Tom Brice, and we are with the aforementioned, the Guiding Light Isaiah Quinn. And for more information on the Sports Report, you can go to sportsreportx.com. And to listen to all of our archives, you can go to soundcloud.com/the Sports Report 2019 and subscribe to our YouTube page, the Sports Report, the #1 global sports show. And as always, a huge shout out to the entire team here at Sportanarium, including Lakey, Art, Dave, Dale, Steve, Susie, Sasha, Martin, Connor, our newest addition to the Sportanarium lineup, Mike Lipinski and the In the Fight Show. And as always, you can subscribe to the Sportanarium TV YouTube page at Sportanarium TV. You can follow Sportanarium on Twitter and Instagram at Sportanarium. You can like Sportanarium on Facebook at Sportanarium Media. And most importantly, you can listen to the Sports Report Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, 5 to 7 Eastern Time, 10 to 12 UK time on Sportanarium.com. That's Sportanarium.com. Where you can listen not only to the Sports Report, but 24 hours, 7 days a week, and 365 days a year of Sportanarium content. And these are reasons why Sportanarium is the #1 global radio station. So you know what you need to do. Go to Sportanarium.com, where you can always listen to the Sports Report Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 to 12 UK time. We've made it easy for everybody. So it's that simple. Go to Sportanarium.com. And most importantly, again, follow Sportanarium on Twitter and Instagram at Sportanarium, like the Sportanarium Facebook page at Sportanarium Media, and subscribe to the Sportanarium TV YouTube page at Sportanarium TV. And once again, shout outs to the entire team here at Sportanarium. We're doing so many great things, and in such a short amount of time, the Sportanarium has become the #1 global radio station. Well, it's frankly because the Sports Report helped build Sportanarium. I mean, if you think about it, on Sportanarium, right, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, what other shows do you know as well as the Sports Report? But as always, though, we are honored to be on the station, but most importantly, we are honored to have on our guest to kick things off here on the Sports Report this week, and that is our guiding light. He is our motivation. He is giving us hope, and the beginning is definitely not the end when it comes to the latest signing of Odyssey Pro Wrestling, and that is the guiding light Isaiah Quinn, and we're talking all things related to his career in Odyssey Pro Wrestling. And Isaiah, I gotta say, your music is as good as anybody's I've heard. Listen, Synergies has great music, and we've obviously talked about RPD's video package, and we've obviously gotten to hear a number of different wrestlers' theme songs here that are going to be in Odyssey and also are colleagues of yours. But I gotta say, yours is the most well done, I think, in terms of the packaging and just the overall song. It almost sounds like an instrumental that, I don't know, did you play the guitar? Did you play the keyboard? Did you play the piano? I mean, something tells me you might be like a Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig, where you're able to do everything at once. But for our worldwide audience here on Sportanarium, talk about the Guiding Light entrance music.
Don't you know how Prince is regarded? He used to play everything, every instrument on his album. I am Prince. I'm the wrestling equivalent of Prince. I dabble in keyboard and guitar, and I just kind of I wanted to sort of encapsulate a bit of a dark tone for my entrance theme, and I just kind of was playing about. I had some software that helped me create what I wanted. I wouldn't say that I am, a fully fledged musician, but I can kind of, play the odd tune. But I wanted to be able to just say, this is my music. It's not a song from a band. This is something that is just for me. And that's something that I would recommend to any wrestlers, getting custom music made to, really make yourself stand out and to be able to say that it is yours.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And it was always noticeable when a wrestler had a band's entrance versus the custom generic, whether it was Jimmy Hart in WCW or whether it was Jim Johnston in the WWF/WWE, where they made the music. Your music, when it was a band, for example, when Hogan had Voodoo Child, or when Goldberg had Crush 'Em from Megadeth, or even Sting had Seek and Destroy, or Triple H when he had Motorhead with Time to Play the Game, or the King of Kings or Evolution. So you can tell the difference when a band or an artist performs that song. And I was curious about this since you were able to come up with your own music. Do you have to come up with a different mindset when it comes to making music or trying to come up with something that fits you? I mean, being a wrestler is one thing, but in terms of your mindset to come up with your own music, is that a different mindset that you have?
That's a really interesting question. I think it comes from the same place, quite in a kind of sort of abstract way of thinking. That's how I kind of think of my wrestling anyway, as Isaiah Quinn. When I want to get in someone's head, have a very abstract way of trying to do that. And it's the same with whenever I sort of try and make music, or when I was making that song, I just kind of feel like, right, where would I want the sort of bass drop or something, to come in, and kind of thinking it as a whole, rather than sort of being nitpicky. And yeah, it's a very difficult question to answer, but I do think that the general idea is from the same part of my mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I always felt that wrestling and music always went hand in hand. If you think about it, right? ECW is a nostalgia even to this day. Why? Because of the music, whether it was RVD had Pantera Walk, Tommy Dreamer had Man in the Box from Alice in Chains. The Sandman had, Enter Sandman from Metallica. And the list goes on. So music and wrestling always go hand in hand, even going back to the old WWF days where you had the Rock and Wrestling, that 1984, 85-ish, the beginning of WrestleMania, Cyndi Lauper and everybody else that was about Rick Derringer. So there was that rock and wrestling atmosphere. So I've always thought in a lot of ways music and wrestling go hand in hand, maybe more than any other sport that's out there. And speaking of promoting, and you talked with a few of your colleagues and a few other wrestlers, and we won't name them because we talked a lot about this off the air, but you're one of the best self-promoters around in the fact that you have merchandise out there, you have the Guiding Light TV, you have so many other things that you've worked on. And how important is that in the fact that you're so good at promoting yourself, where your social media, it's nonstop. I mean, I need a scorecard to keep up with you. It's every day you're doing something else. And that was what one of the wrestlers had said to us. And they had said that the Guiding Light, Isaiah Quinn, is one of the best self-promoters out there around, in that he's always doing something out there. And that when you hear that from a colleague, a peer, somebody that you've probably even been in the ring with, I mean, what does that mean to you? And talk about your promoting end of who you are.
I'd like to know who that person is. Maybe you can tell me off air. It is a nice thing to hear. That's a really nice thing to hear. I think, how can I put this? I'm quite happy with coming on here and saying that I'm not the best wrestler there is. How I wrestle is all about how I get into people's heads. And one of the easiest ways to do that is through social media and, through certain things that I can do in the ring as well. So it's part of who I am. It's important for me to kind of get out there and do a promo. It can be on anything. It doesn't have to be a response to something. I've put material out there that has just, I've picked on someone. I've decided that I want to get inside someone's head. So I'll do a promo on them. I'll put it up on social media, and then that gets there. You can see the cogs going in their head then as to, why would I do that? Why has he done that? Why is he singling me out? It's all part of how I work as a wrestler. Yeah, I think, I've heard it before. I think, there's been a few wrestlers that have said, content is king, and I've always fancied myself as a talker. I think it's probably my strongest attribute. And, I'm a persona. So when you're wrestling in a match, you don't get to do that an awful lot. So where can I do it? Well, I could do promos before a match, but social media is like the biggest outlet for me. Yeah. And in terms of like merchandise and stuff like that, that just kind of comes through time, I guess. The more you get out there, the more you kind of can see whether there's a demand for people to want to buy your merchandise, and then you just kind of take it from there. So hopefully we'll be having some new merchandise made by the time wrestling shows come back. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
We cannot wait for that. and we look forward to wearing one of those shirts from the Guiding Light Isaiah Quinn, because we're very excited about having him here on the show. And we arguably think that you're the biggest guest that we've had on from Odyssey Pro Wrestling. That's how excited we were to have you, because of just how well spoken you are and your promos. And while you may say that you're not the best wrestler, but I'm going to say where you're one of the best in something, and that's ring psychology. And for a worldwide audience on Sportanarium, it's important for a couple of reasons. And one of the things that I took away most from your in-ring work, whether it was at Future Shock, whether it was at Grand Pro, In Out, whether it was at KOW, is that you're very good at getting under your opponent's skin. You're very good at letting the match tell a story. And I think that a lot of wrestlers don't understand the importance of that. And I think that you work the crowd very well. Talk to me about your thoughts on that when it comes to your ring psychology.
That's a very nice thing to say. I appreciate that. Yeah, the more uncomfortable I can make someone in the ring, that's almost half the job done, isn't it? You know, I don't care if that person or the crowd doesn't like me. That's not why I'm there, okay? I want people to see the world through my eyes. And if they can't do that, then I'll be getting under your skin. You know, I'll be getting in your head. And ultimately, history has shown that doesn't really work out very well for my opponents.
No, it does not. Listen, your opponents are going to be in a lot of trouble, in a world of hurt, when we get back in the ring here in a couple of months. And this is, again, reasons why we're very excited to be talking with the Guiding Light Isaiah Quinn and all the great things that he has done and all the great things that he is going to do for Odyssey Pro Wrestling. As I am the host of the Sports Report, the Reverend Tom Brice, and we're talking with the Guiding Light Isaiah Quinn here on Sportanarium, the #1 global radio station. We're here at Sportanarium.com talking all things related to Odyssey Pro Wrestling. And speaking of promos, I know that you've done a couple of them recently. One of them was for Odyssey when you debuted here not too long ago, and the other one for Target Pro Wrestling, where you cut a promo for the world title. And we know that a couple of your other colleagues here in Odyssey that we've spoken with have also cut one, and we'll get to them in a minute, because I think a lot of people are definitely waiting to hear what you have to say about some of those colleagues that we've had on the show. But talk about the latest promo you cut for Target Pro Wrestling, and then also the promo that you cut here for Odyssey Pro Wrestling when you debuted and had the announcement here for Set Sail. And for a worldwide audience on Sportanarium, talk about those promos.
Yeah, so Target Wrestling, I'm familiar with them. I've never worked for them, but they recently decided that they were going to welcome like an open invitation for people to take part in a championship tournament. And we just had to deliver a promo. They'd share it on their social media, and I assume then they'll pick wrestlers for this tournament based on how they have come across through this promo. So I wanted to address Target Wrestling as to, how can I put it, how I can bring wealth to their promotion, not necessarily in monetary terms, but wealth as in life, positive life. And yeah, I decided that I was going to put my name forward for that tournament. If they decide not to pick me, that's their loss. That's not going to stop me from trying again. I will keep trying. And eventually, like everyone else, I'll get under their skin. I'll get inside their heads, just like we were talking about before. And I will be there at some point. That's Target Wrestling.
We know that you are going to somehow, some way or another, get into that tournament. And you very well may win that title, my friend.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the aim, isn't it? Like I said, the goals with OPW can be transferred to Target. It's about destroying dreams, isn't it? That's what makes dreams. When you have a dream, I'm sure you have a dream, Mr. Brice. I'm sure you have a dream. Sometimes dreams are only achievable for a certain number of people, and sometimes there'll be more than one person going for the same dream. So unfortunately, someone's dream is going to have to get crushed. Now, who better to do that than me?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, I know our dream was to talk with the Guiding Light Isaiah Quinn, so we certainly hope that the Guiding Light doesn't crush our dreams, but we know that he's going to crush a lot of other wrestlers.
No. I will continue to make your dreams come true.
Well, we are very humbled by that, but I know that a lot of people are waiting to hear what you have to say about some wrestlers whose dreams you may or may not crush when it comes to Odyssey Pro Wrestling. And the first one I want to talk is 2-Bit, the main event, the Gangsta Lord. He was somebody that we had on the show last week. And I find him similar to you in terms of his ring psychology and his ability to work the crowd. I think he's a little bit of a different wrestler than you, obviously, but I see some similarities in terms of how well-spoken you guys are and also in terms of how you understand to promote your guys' careers and everything that you're doing. But for our worldwide audience here on Sportanarium, talk about what we can see from 2-Bit in Odyssey Pro Wrestling.
The Rat King. Yes, so 2-Bit is a feisty fellow. I'm sure you'll have seen when you interviewed him. He arguably has a lot of weight on his shoulders, and unfortunately, that can break a porky's back. A lot of people regard 2-Bit as carrying British wrestling. He's a young lad, and I believe that he can. But let me tell you this: if I have to step into the ring with 2-Bit, I hope his back's repaired from carrying the weight of British wrestling on his shoulders, because otherwise, I'm just going to break it again.
I hope that the gangster I'll be
laughing, but you're laughing, but I'm serious.
You better be listening, because the Guiding Light has a message for you. So you might have some weight on your shoulders, but the Guiding Light, Isaiah Quinn, is definitely coming for you. And another team that we had on the show a few weeks ago, who I really became impressed with their work. Again, I see a lot of differences and I see some similarities, and that's the team of Synergy, Anderson and Barnum. And again, they're definitely the strongman and the Superman of Odyssey Pro Wrestling. But talk about what we can see from Synergy and Odyssey Pro Wrestling later this year.
Yeah, what a dynamic they have there. 2 big guys, 2 strong men. But they're not your kind of stereotypical strong men. They can move as well. So, I think should Odyssey go down a tag team division, they would be top of my list to be most likely to succeed in that area. I'm sure that they aren't without their faults, Mr. Brice. It's just that some people, it's very difficult to find what their faults are. Synergy are very good at masking them faults. There may not even be that many. But again, if the time comes where we step into the room with them, I'll find them. But, other than that, I wish no harm on them. Best of luck to them.
Synergy is, again, one of these teams that you really want to see in the ring, because you get your money's worth and some. And what they do, again, very similar to what you do in promoting yourself and understanding social media and the importance of it. So definitely want to make sure that we give Synergy huge shout outs and look forward to watching them here for Odyssey Pro Wrestling later this year. And I also want to bring up somebody else that I know that you've been in the ring with and you've actually teamed up with in the past. And he's, again, somebody that's been a world champion. He's dominated in KOW wrestling, and he's somebody that's really transformed himself. And I think he's going to have a huge 2021. And I know that you've given some hope to him in the past, and that's the Cumberian outlaw, Rick Marcus. And talk about your memories of being in the ring with Rick Marcus and what our worldwide audience on Sportanarium listening can expect when it comes to the Cumberian outlaw, Rick Marcus.
Yes, Rick Marcus. He is a beast. We have crossed paths working together in out wrestling, where we were part of a stable that, because we wanted to spread our knowledge in out wrestling. And Rick's got a very, very great mind for wrestling and a very, a very interesting demeanor. He stares through you. If you're standing in his way, you better move, because God forbid the mess, the carnage that could be made. Yeah, I have a lot of time for Rick Marcus. I have a lot of time for 2-Bit and for the lads at Synergy. I think that Rick Marcus could be, a huge deal in British wrestling. I'm sure that in time to come, we'll be seeing him across the UK, and hopefully, there'll be some overseas promotions for him. He's got good look. He's starting to get down this aesthetic that you don't really see in many other people. So yeah, I would love to get in the ring with him again, to be a team, but I'm not discounting standing opposite from him, okay? We don't know what's going to happen in the next however many months. So if that happens, he can stare through me all he wants. I'll be staring into his mind.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's pay-per-view WrestleMania like of a match. If it was the Guiding Light versus the Cumbarian Outlaw, or maybe they're back together as a team. That is definitely a to be determined, and we will certainly see what happens when it comes to that. And I definitely want a front row seat for whatever that happens between the two of them, because they have a history with each other. And speaking of somebody that you have a history with, and we've had him on the show not once but twice, and we didn't necessarily save the best for last, but we saved one of the best for last, because we love all of you equally here at Odyssey Pro Wrestling, and that's obviously none other than RPD. That's RP Davis, former boxing champion. Yep, I knew that was coming. So I would like to know then, since we've put it out there, RP Davis, you have a history with him. You know him very well. I mean, what's your thoughts on him, and what would you like to maybe do with him in Odyssey Pro Wrestling?
What would I like to mainly do with RP Davis? You can use your imagination for that. I don't know how many more times I have to talk about RP Davis. I am not discrediting what he's done in the past as a boxer. He's a legitimate force, and he has made this transition to wrestling incredibly well. There's just something about him that I don't like. Is that a crime? Can you answer that? Am I wrong for thinking that?
No, listen, absolutely. Listen, I mean, I think what you say, you make a lot of valid points. I mean, from your vantage point, I mean, you certainly have a right to feel the way you feel.
Yeah, and I think should our paths cross in OPW, Odyssey, however you want to call it, I don't care whether he tries to punch through me. How many hits will he have taken in his career? Yeah, he can be hit. I mean, I don't want to disparage the man too much, because I don't want to put him down too much, because I feel like if you put someone down too much, that gives them motivation to fight. I want to keep him guessing. But you'll never see RP Davis put a video up of him getting battered, will you? So does that mean that that's never happened? Or does it mean that he's protecting himself?
I think, ladies and gentlemen, the word of Isaiah is that RP Davis, I hope you're listening, because the Guiding Light has some maybe even motivational like words for you. So I don't know if it's the beginning of the end when it comes to the two of them, but I got a feeling
Hey, whoa. The beginning of the end. I mean, that's very, very harsh. Like I said, I'm not diminishing what he's achieved. I'm sure he's got a lot of qualities, but I have a bone to pick with him. But I just don't know what that bone is yet. When I find out, if we come at each other in the ring, only really going to be one outcome. So it's not the apocalypse. It's not Armageddon, Mr. Brice. It's simply just a way of life. Okay?
The word of Isaiah is that stay tuned, because Odyssey Pro Wrestling is going to set sail. Because listen, I know everybody's talking about WrestleMania. Everybody is talking about Sacrifice, the Impact pay-per-view coming up here Saturday, where we're going to see title for title. Everyone's talking about Retribution and the explosion that wasn't. But I think on my mind, and everybody's minds on Sportanarium, it's going to be Odyssey Pro Wrestling set sail. So if we have to pay for it on pay-per-view, pay-per-view, if we have to find a way to watch it, we all know why we have to watch it, because you have a who's who of great talent, not just RP Davis, not just the Guiding Light Isaiah Quinn, but everybody that's currently in Odyssey Pro Wrestling and everybody else that's going to be in Odyssey Pro Wrestling. And these are reasons why we're honored to have on the Sports Report for a few more minutes the latest signee of Odyssey Pro Wrestling, and that is the Guiding Light Isaiah Quinn. And I hope this one chant the Guiding Light does, like when it comes to Odyssey Pro Wrestling, we've come up with this OP Dub, OP Dub, OP Dub, OP Dub. So we definitely want to hear more chants of OP Dub, OP Dub, and we definitely, well, good. Well, I'm glad that you like that one, because we like chanting OP Dub. We're very excited about OPW, just as we're very excited to have you on the show here. And what a way to kick off the Sports Report this week, to have on the Guiding Light Isaiah Quinn. And we have a few more minutes with the Guiding Light. And Isaiah, before we get your closing thoughts and ask you about one or two things that are most important about your career and any one or two moments that stand out most, I wanted to talk about also very quickly some of your memories of your time in Future Shock Pro Wrestling, KOW, and Grand Pro Wrestling. And what are your memories of wrestling in those promotions?
Yeah, I'm very grateful to have had a lot of very, very good storylines with Future Shock. Grand Pro managed to wrestle with Knockout Wrestling with Piers, Big Guns Joe. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but yeah, I think ultimately things that I'm most proud of is being trusted, basically, to grow and develop a storyline with, numerous people, particular people, stalwarts of the British wrestling scene like DDL, Damon Lee, people like Kevin Lloyd, who's a fantastic mat technician. So yeah, very grateful to have had these opportunities. And I think that when they realized what I was capable of, they couldn't really turn me away.
Well, I don't think any promotion would want to turn you away, my friend. Listen, we wish we could see you in AEW. For whatever reason, I don't know why, maybe because I'm watching a lot of AEW recently, but for some reason, I could see you fitting in AEW. Maybe it's the Dark Order. Maybe it's with Darby Allin. I don't know where it is, but there's somewhere or another. We got to see you here in the States, whether it's with AEW, even MLW's out there. The NWA is coming back. I mean, Nick Aldis is the champion. I don't know, maybe Nick Aldis needs an opponent. So we see there's a lot of promotions here in the States that could definitely use you. But I want to ask you about this person before we get your closing thoughts and one or two moments that stand out most in your career. And that's Chris Brooker. And I know that you were on the Zoom call with Lance Storm not too long ago that we talked a lot about with Rick Marcus on and Synergy. And I know that you had the opportunity to also meet with the man behind NXT, well, on TV at least, on screen, and William Regal. Again, arguably one of the most important wrestlers in UK history, and probably one day will be a WWE Hall of Famer. And talk about the importance of Chris Brooker to your career.
Oh yeah, incredibly important. He was the one who him and Sam Bailey, Future Shock, were the ones who entrusted me with, developing Kevin Lloyd as a legitimate, darker version of himself. And he really trusted me to be the person who was the devil's advocate in Kevin Lloyd's ear, whilst he was trying to kind of overcome his lack of success in the wake of his tag team partner. Chris has got this incredible mind in terms of character development and how he sees storylines progress. And you can learn a lot from just being in the same room with it as him. And I think, we've done a few group promo classes with Chris, and that, he's organised things with Lance Storm. And it's just been, he's helped contribute to who Isaiah Quinn is today.
A rising tide lifts all boats. And ladies and gentlemen, that rising tide is going to be Isaiah Quinn. And let your hearts not be troubled. We have been given hope because the word of Isaiah is going to lift us here when it comes to 2021. And this is why we are motivated about the return of pro wrestling in the UK. But most importantly, the Odyssey Pro Wrestling set sail event and all the great things that this program and this promotion is going to offer. And the Guiding Light Isaiah Quinn is the perfect example of that. And that is why we were honored to have him here on the Sports Report, the #1 global sports show on Sportanarium, to talk about his journey, his career, some memories of great matches he's had, and also even some of his colleagues. So we're certainly going to stay tuned for their responses on that. But most importantly, we are tremendously honored, humbled, and privileged privileged to have had the opportunity to speak with one of the best minds in the business, somebody that is going to go far, very far in the UK pro wrestling scene. It will land him one day, like we said, whether it's AEW, WWE, MLW, the NWA, New Japan, you name it, the Guiding Light is going to be there. And before we get your closing thoughts, and obviously we'll plug all of your social media, all the great links that you're on, and where we can find out more stuff and maybe watch some more promo videos and more vignettes and everything else that you're doing out there to promote yourself, and obviously on behalf of Odyssey Pro Wrestling and all the great wrestlers out there. I wanted to ask you, and I know that you have a lot of moments so far in the ring. You've done a lot in wrestling. You've been in the business now a while. You've wrestled in a lot of promotions, a lot of territories. What I wanted to ask you, especially for our worldwide audience listening here on Sportanarium, is there one or two moments that stand out most in your career so far?
Yeah, I think one of my proudest moments was main event in the last ever Wrestle Pro show here in Salford. It went through a bit of a rebranding phase, and there was a tournament that crowned a cup winner. Unfortunately, I didn't win, but I learned a lot from the experience. I was in the ring with an incredible talent, Callum Corrie. And yeah, it was just a very nice, humbling moment to have been trusted with main eventing the kind of last ever show under that banner. So yeah, that was probably the most my most proud moment.
Well, on this show, you won the cup. So congratulations, because we don't recognize losses here on this show. So you won. So if there's a way that we can build a cup and send it over your way, you are definitely our champion of that. So obviously, we don't agree with the outcome of that match. So that's why we're reversing it. You won the cup. Congratulations. And we look forward to you main eventing many more shows, and especially for Odyssey Pro Wrestling, especially if Target Wrestling does the right thing and put you in that tournament, because we know that you are going to be in the main event. And I'd love to see whether it's you and Two Bit or whether it's you and RP Davis or Rick Marcus. I mean, I got a feeling that you're going to be in the mix for some world titles and many more main events ahead, my friend. So congratulations on all of your success so far. And like we said, a rising tide lifts all boats, and you were definitely that rising tide. And for you, my friend, I want to give you the floor. I want to give you any closing thoughts. I also want you to plug all of your social media, all of your links, so we can keep up to date with why you are the guiding light, with why we all need hope, with why we need the word of Isaiah in our lives. And my friend, it has been a tremendous honor once again. So anything you want to share with our worldwide audience, the floor is yours. And also, please plug, most importantly, all of your social media: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, anything else you have out there, especially with Guiding Light TV, so we can keep up to date and find out why 2021 is going to be the year of the word of Isaiah. So for you, my friend, I can't thank you enough, and the floor is yours.
I guess a message to everyone out there, including the people that we've talked about today. Don't worry, okay? I'll make it as painless as possible for you to understand that I can offer you a new life, okay? Don't worry. Everything will be just fine if you follow the word of Isaiah. And you can follow the word of Isaiah on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Guiding Light IQ. Thomas, I'd like to thank you very much for having me on your radio show, and I wish you all the best as well. I'm very honoured to have been welcomed as well as I have. But yes, thank you very much. It's been an honour.
Absolutely. And listen, anytime we can talk about the word of Isaiah on this show, we will always have the welcome mat for you, my friend. And we're very humbled to have had you on the show. We're very grateful for all the support that we've been given, especially in the UK with Odyssey Pro Wrestling, and obviously our many supporters with Sportanarium. Very humbled to have been heard in 8 countries now with the show. And I think the momentum is growing. You're a big part of that. Everybody at Odyssey has been a big part of that. And we're looking forward to watching you in the ring. And everybody needs to follow the Guiding Light Isaiah Quinn on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Guiding Light IQ, and find out why you need some more the word of Isaiah in your life. So, my friend, I cannot thank you enough for the opportunity. Congratulations on being a part of Odyssey Pro Wrestling. Bring home some world titles for us, especially with Target Wrestling. And we're looking forward to you being in another main event, hopefully soon, with Odyssey Pro Wrestling.
Thank you.
As we're here on the Sports Report, the number one global sports show with the latest star of Odyssey Pro Wrestling, OP-Dub, 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 and that's the Guiding Light Isaiah Quinn. As I am the host of the Sports Report, the Reverend Tom Brice, and stay tuned for some brand new music from three-time Sports Report alum Anthony Finkel is in the house with some new music that our worldwide audience on Sportanarium is going to be in for a treat with, and it's music that we have not heard in a very, very long time, so very excited to be playing that. And then right after that, we're going to replay our interview with the UK premier trio, the premier band around, and that's the very superb, the Superlatives, and Jamie Godley, who just celebrated a birthday, and Charlie Noble and Tom Gosden. We definitely want to make sure everybody stays tuned for that, as we were here on the Sports Report, the number one global sports show with the latest signing of Odyssey Pro Wrestling, and that's the Guiding Light Isaiah Quinn. And stay tuned for some brand new Anthony Finkel music, and right after that, we're talking once again with the Superlatives, as we're here on Sportanarium, the number one global radio station.